So yeah, once again, welcome to the session. Yeah, it's weekend batch 204, and so as yesterday we saw the syllabus, so today we'll be seeing theory part. Okay, so means like this would be like only two theories. The first thing we will set up the labs, right? So after that we will be seeing the theory, or we can see the theory part at first, like our booting procedure we will be seeing today. Okay, so this one. So we'll be seeing this. But before that, just for the just for your heads up, you can scan this QR code and to join the session. Sorry, yeah, to pursue the session like after demo sessions from the next week. And you can scan this in order to see the course content, right? Like the syllabus part, the one which I explained yesterday, right? So you can see that by scanning this QR code, as well as if you have any issues through the login or any like any issues regarding any other technical aspects, you can reach out to me. But if you have any portal issue or any WhatsApp group, it's not you can't join that, or any of such issues, you can reach out to these contacts. Okay, and yeah, so the first two sessions it will be free, and from the third one it will be a paid one. And please do join this link. So will also let me send you, because sometimes people won't join right away, and yeah, later they would ask if there is any update regarding the course. They would ask that. So better to join the WhatsApp group. And yeah, so this is the availability time of the support team. So if you have any technical issues regarding the portal and all, so you can reach out to the support team during Monday to Saturday during 9 to 7 p.m. IST. Okay, and these are all the contact numbers. And so for today's session, first thing, let me explain you what is booting process. So, but before that, we didn't saw how much it costs for the certification, right? So let me open that. Yeah. So just Google EX200. So that is the exam number. Okay. So this is for the people who want to um, who want to give the exam after the session. So not immediately, but if you are interested in RHCSA, and trust me, it would be a best decision, I would say, because it is it has much more credibility than you might have an idea as of now. So if you add this in your resume, it adds a weightage to that, and that's a good thing actually. So why? Because you are confirming the recruiter or the interviewer that okay, at least till intermediate level for a sysadmin or a system engineer role, right? So this would give that credibility to your resume, and that's a good thing. And our syllabus also would revolve around the same. Like if you see this and my syllabus, it would be almost same. Why? Because that's how I designed it, and it's good actually. So because this certificate will touch almost every important areas or important topics. So yeah, that's the one. And the exam cost would be around um, in INR it is, or Indian rupee, it is around 20K for 20K INR for RHCSA. And you just convert this to the USD. So it would be roughly some dollars. Okay, so in dollars it would be. So you, and one more thing is you can't register yourself. So you need to reach out to one of the learning centers to register for the exam. So that is one of the important criteria, that you need to find a learning facility. So Logic Labs doesn't provide this one, or it is not a certified Red Hat accreditation one, right? So you need to reach out to, in not only India, I just gave India as a country, and you can almost every country it is there here. And one more best thing about this exam is it is a remote also. means you can write from your own device using a webcam. Okay, so and I attended like that only, so it is a seamless one. So because they take PSMU as a proctor solution, and yeah, it is a good one. So yeah, so you need to reach out to any one of this learning facility and ask them to register exam on your behalf. So for that, you need to create a Red Hat ID. Okay, so you just click on login and create account. So it will be easy one. Just a sec, let me. Yeah. So click on register for Red Hat account, and yeah, so you need to give all these details, and it would take the personal mail ID as well. So you need not even give a like your work email ID. So not needed. So you can give your personal one and create account. So once you verified your mail ID, you will it will generate a Red Hat ID. So that would be a unique ID, and you that is the one you need to like provide to the learning facility. Okay, so that is the basic thing. And yeah, so this is for the people who want to pursue the certification. So yeah, so let's move on to the today's agenda. So today we will be seeing the booting process. So why booting process is important, not only as a Linux admin, in general, a system admin must know what happens once you press the power button, right? So that's the a basic thing. So like within 3 minutes, it will system would be up. So maximum of an ETA of 5 minutes it would take, but mostly your system would up. But in background, what is happening? So you must know that, and it is one of the very oldest interview question, right? So that's the thing. So if you know this, and one more thing is like if you are stuck somewhere in your work environment, so let's say there is a server, it went down, and if you are trying to power up, so it is not fully powering on, or you can't see the means you can't log into the server. So it is stuck somewhere in this booting process. So where it is stuck, if you know these process only, you can diagnose that issue, right? So that's the reason you must understand at least how it is working, or how is the workflow from the time you power on till you're seeing the lock screen, or like if you are using the CLI, that like your login prompt it will ask for, right? So that's the thing. And I might have mentioned CLI and GUI. So what are all those two? First thing we'll see that GUI and CLI. So GUI full form is graphical user interface, whereas CLI is command line interface. So what is the difference is, so GUI, the best example is what you are seeing now. Your Windows is the best example because graphically you have multiple icons here and you are interacting with that using the cursor and your keyboard, right? So that is a GUI, whereas CLI, right? So there is no graphical element or nothing but your command prompt. So if you go to start and type CMD, you will see the screen, right? So this is a CLI. So how we can confirm it is a CLI? Obviously, there is no icons, and you will be having this prompt, right? So like in your case, this would be your system name and or your username. So yeah, but this is the only mode of interaction is your keyboard, not your cursor. So cursor also you can, but just for selecting or something. But mostly if you want to interact with the machine, only using your keyboard you can. And one more criteria is you must know the binaries. So binaries or the commands, right? So as I told, binary is nothing but a command. Okay, so that's what, like you must know these kind of commands in order to interact with the server. Or else if you type something or some random thing, so let's say dir1 or something, it can't understand it. So it will throw this error for sure because it is not in its shell, right? So or so it is not in the system that it can't provide an output or it didn't understood this one. what you're giving, because it is you're defining it, right? So that's the thing. And yeah, so this is a bare minimum, and you can even survive with your command prompt. So this is for Windows, whereas for Linux there is a thing called as shell. So shell is a mode of interaction to the server, and you will use or you must use shell. And there are different types of shell, so we will see those things later. So as of now, we'll start this booting process. Okay, so let me open thing. I want to explain this. Okay, so first thing is here. Let's say this is your system, and you are pressing the power button, right? So this is the power button, let's say, and once you press that, so first thing, let me give a basic idea about our this one. Just a sec. Okay, so you have a motherboard here. So let me give a basic idea how the hardware would interact. So the first thing is once you press the power button, right? So there will be a small voltage, it will be sent, or a very little amount of voltage will be sent to all the components in your server. Sorry, in your motherboard, especially. So, and this is a basic hardware test. Okay, means if something is not plugged in correctly, or if it is a faulty hardware or some issue, there itself it won't even it won't be even eligible for the current boot, right? So because as of now it is not it is not seated correctly. Let's say there is a your RAM slots, right? So let's say you so it is not fully inserted, right? So those kind of issues is a hardware issue. So that's what, like, during the first process itself it will be eliminated. So that's the thing. And the first the many would think that it would, so before that, so I told the power, a small amount of voltage would be sending, right? So that process is called as post, means power on self test. Okay, so if this post is being successful, then only you will see your BIOS or the next boot or the next step you will be seeing once your post is successful. So if it is not successful, then what you will be seeing is here there is a LED actually. So you see easy debug LED, right? So which means, so these LEDs, so this all are like let's say this is for CPU, memory, and GPU, and last one will be your BIOS, right? So if something went wrong or it is not like let's say you mounted like a hard disk which is not compatible, or a CPU which is not compatible for this motherboard. So like those kind of hardware issues, if it is there, or your RAM is like not, that's what, like compatibility issues, right? So if it is not working as expected, there would be an amber light here, so that it is there is an issue in the post, right? So that's the thing. And once if it is all are fine, then only it will move on to the next step. Okay, so the next one would be, so now only your display or your GPU, it will be powering on and it will be showing you the screen. And in that you'll be seeing the BIOS, right? So BIOS is basic input output system, which is nothing but what and all input output in your system. So this is your storage, right? So this black, inside that there is a M.2 SSD, as well as you can connect your SATA disk, and you have hardware like your RAM. So let me just, so why I'm showing MSI is like currently I'm using MSI. So this is a MSI motherboard. So that's the reason I'm showing you that. Yeah. So this is the MSI's official BIOS screen. Okay. So you would see a lot of information. So all are relevant information only, right? So the first thing is your how much frequency your hardware is running. like your CPU and your RAM, right? So means what is speed in this case? So speed is nothing but, so there is a potential of each and every hardware which you are connecting to the motherboard especially, and there is a limitation for that motherboard also. And the speed is what it will determine how much process or how much it can withstand, right? So even in your mobile also there is a like frequency for each and every core. So if you go too detailed, it will be a long session, but I'm just giving a basic idea, right? So each core has its own speed. This is cumulatively, it is a speed, and you can change that via tuning the frequencies. So it is a frequency first thing, and you can tune it, and you can change the voltage level as well. So once you change the voltage level higher, so you see there is a voltage level here, right? 1.2 volt, right? So those kind of changes you need to make in order to increase your, or it is called as overclocking. So you're going to overclock this is a default frequency, right? So that's the thing, and you would see temperatures as well, and you can even set some different profiles if you are like you're an advanced user and you are changing this a lot, so you can change that. And all this is for a typical or a consumer grade motherboard. How about a server grade motherboard? You would see, so first thing you have a thing called as ILO or some, so I'm just giving a basic HP ILO one. So just for your understanding. Okay. Just a sec. Yeah. So this is what you will see. So this is a actual your data center grade like your servers, okay, rack servers it is called as, and it's like too costly as well. So like at least the starting rate would be around 20 lakhs something, right? So yeah, so that's what, like you would see many information or much more information than your typical motherboard or the BIOS which I just shown you, right? So why? Because here it is like you need this many information, since it is a like a lot of components will be considered, especially for a data center level, right? So that's the important thing. And you see a thing called as remote console. We'll come back to this later, okay? And you see a power management, how much power should be provided for that server. And there is, so this is a separate chip actually. So um, in your motherboard, okay? So even so, don't think that okay, data center it's a very different thing. So it would be same like your motherboard which we just saw like this, but it there will be a very few components like which should be not if it is not required, it won't be there, right? So those kind of modification it would be, and there would be more components, especially for storage or data store. There will be a lot of components, and this is the yeah. So this is the actually rack servers and all. Okay. So it is a very bulky and a lot of options it would be there. So you see switches as well as your power outlet itself. So many are there, fan and so many things. So why these are all important, right? So you should know at least the basic idea, the bare minimum, at least you need to know, because not every server it would be hosted in AWS or some cloud service provider, right? So some critical servers it will be hosted in the like physical, and you would have access to this ILO. At least this ILO you will have access. So you should understand or at least know how this UI would look like, right? So, or what are all the information it would be. So this is from the HP. So Cisco has their own servers, like Cisco UCS servers are there. So those are all different things. So like that, each vendor. So Dell has their own solution, like data center solution, like that. So many are there. So this is a Cisco UCS Blade server. Just a sec. Yeah. So this is a Cisco UCS Blade server. So like that, a lot of servers are there. Okay, so now, so why I told that is your sorry, I missed the main thing. So the booting like boot priority. Okay, so just a sec. Yeah, so yeah, you see, sorry, let me try this. Yeah, yeah. So you see this boot priority, and you see the like hard disk, CD, USB, or many things are there, right? But this is the boot order it will be followed. Okay, so means so if it is a boot device, and obviously it will be at least one should be there, right? So let's say this is my boot device, so that would be the first. Like that, you have multiple things, and if you want to change your operating system, or if you plugged in a bootable removable disk, you can rearrange this order. Okay, so that's the boot priority or boot order. So that is the first or the most important thing, especially in your BIOS. Okay, so it is your boot order. And let's say you selected hard disk and CD and let's say removable disk, some pen drive or something. So first thing is your hard disk. Next one is your CD drive, CD or DVD. And you can change this boot order whenever you want to change it. So that's the thing. So removable disk, anything it can be. And let's say you selected this one, or mostly if you have a working operating system, it will be first thing your hard disk only, obviously it will boot, right? So after that is an important thing. So, and there is a lot of information in BIOS itself, but that's what, like each uh, motherboard has the BIOS, and many would have a myth that, okay, BIOS also residing under your hard disk. Obviously, no. So BIOS is residing in your uh, motherboard only. Okay, so not your hard disk. So it will be residing or it will be stored in your motherboard only. So yeah, and so the next thing is your, and let's say you selected your hard disk. So next is an important thing, which is your partition style. So now you selected which one to be booted first, and so now which way it should boot, or what is the, so by default, any hard disk will have many sectors. Okay, so so this is for a hard disk. Even for SSDs, even though it is not a physical disk actually, but still it works as a sector based. Okay, so even though there is no physically, you don't have anything. Like let me just give an SSD example, right? So if you see here, so all these are SSD. So there is no physical rotating disk or something, right? So whereas if you see a hard disk, right? So there is a physical disk which is rotating, and this IO head will be reading that. So here it matters that it detects those important sectors or those like ones and zeros, right? So whereas in your SSD it is nullified, right? Means like the concept itself is a different thing, totally different. And yeah, but still, even in SSD, it works like a sector based only, it is stored. Since your server like detects that, and those sector based storage, or it is called as partition style. So what is a partition style, especially in your Linux, is MBR. Okay, so MBR full form is master boot record, and you have one more partition style which is called as GPT. So MBR and GPT. So MBR is for the, so basically this master boot record. So this is not only for your Linux, even in your Windows or any IoT devices or any even legacy servers, you can use this MBR. because it is like it's been there for quite some time, and GPT is kind of like a new one, and Windows is pushing a lot. So GPT is the default one even in your machine. So if you check, so just right click your Windows, like your start button, click on disk management. Mm, So you'll see multiple disks. In my case, I have three. So you can right click anything and go to properties. And in volumes, you'll see the partition style. Here it is. This is the GPT, right? So like why this is preferred is that's what there is much more. It is feasible and it's like a new partition style. So the difference between MBR and GPT is first thing MBR is like still it's been preferred many devices. Why? Because it's been like compatible to almost any devices you would think of, right? So it's been there for so long, and GPT like it's slowly adopting. And what's the main difference is first thing it is GUID partitions table. So the main difference is you have like here you can create only 4 primary partitions. Okay, so we will see what is primary and so those logical partitions later sessions, but as of now, you can create only 4 main or primary partitions especially. Whereas in GPT, you can create or store 128 primary partitions. So now itself you see the difference or which one it would be like mass audience would prefer, right? So or many users would prefer is GPT. But most of the Linux machine especially, it will be running in MBR still now. Okay, so that's the main thing. And as an end user, you won't even care much, right? So we will maximum we will partition at least 3 or 4, and the fourth one will obviously become as a logical. But in Windows, that too you won't even see because it is a GPT one, right? So that's the thing, and that's the first thing it will see. So why partition style is important, right? So it need to identify which sector to be booted. So now going back to the hard disk diagram. So hard disk with sectors, right? So okay, this is a good one. So let's say this. So yeah. So let's say this first sector or this is the sector, and in this sector only that boot disk is there. So there is a thing called as boot or that grub. So the next step will be stored here. So if it is failing or if it can't detect, right, it is not a bootable disk, right? So obviously, if it detects this one, and if it is not detected, it will throw error or it will stuck here itself, right? So that's the thing. So not only in this, any step, if it can't identify that step or if there is some hardware issue or software issue, it will be stuck there only. So you are the one who need to, as a sysadmin, you are the one, first thing you will be the only person having access to it to diagnose this issue, and you should know that how to diagnose that, right? So that's what you need to understand how each and every step works. Okay, so let's say this is the first sector, and yeah, so let's say this is the first one, and inside this what it would be, obviously your next step. So what is the next one is your grub. So this grub screen you might have already seen, and you might have ignored it, or if you are using dual boot you might have used it. So what is grub is nothing but, let me type it. So Grand Unified Bootloader. So that is the full form. And so the main are the, so okay, let me show you that screen so that you can easily relate it to. So for the people who tried multiple operating system, or if you have multiple OS in the same disk, right? So you might have seen this screen in your Windows, right? So that's what like this one or many grab screens. So yeah, so this is a GNU grab screen. So you have Git, sorry, some Linux version as well as Windows 10 as like that, and many grub screens are there. So this is having Windows Arch Linux, and much more. So like that, right? So that's your grub screen. So you might have seen. So this is for the Kali Linux, and so even though you don't or you will never try dual boot, right? So still you must go through this grub screen. No other option, because this is the screen in which it will be determining whether it need to boot to which operating system. Let's say there is only one, still it just you must go through this even in your Windows as well as any operating system. You need to go through this one, obviously. Okay, so that's the thing. And let's say we have Windows and Linux. So you have two versions, so RHEL 8, which is nothing but your Linux, and Windows 11 in the same disk. Okay, so the same this disk only. So you have both are there. So you have a choice now whether you want to boot to RHEL 8, which is Linux, and Windows. Either one only you can boot. So which one it would be? Right? So why? Because all the drivers or all the ways your hardware will be interacting to the software, right? It is totally different in like these two different streams of operating system, right? So the way it approaches each drivers or each disk or partitions or everything will be different, right? So the partition style itself is different, as I told. And here you have different file systems or different types of file system for Windows, and you won't see this NTFS or this is not compatible with your Linux, right? So like that, many issues are there. So in order to avoid that, you must go through this graph and you should select this. So if you have only one operating system, it will be automatically selected that one, right? So that's the first thing. So let's say you selected this one, RHEL 8. So after that, it now is the important part, your kernel. Okay, so first thing, yesterday we saw what are all the like who founded the kernel, and it is still now it's been there in the GitHub, which is like even he's the same guy who started that version control or VCS, version control system, and yeah, so Linus Torvalds also introduced that like almost so there is a like a 3 to 4 friends founded, but mostly he contributed a lot. Okay, so for Git, so even he is the kind of founding father of Git as well. So that's what. And yeah, so coming back to kernel, so as I told, kernel is so important to your mission. So if there is any issue with the kernel, it won't proceed further no matter what. Okay, so and that mode is called as kernel panic. Means it can't or kernel can't determine which one or some issue with the kernel and it can't determine itself. So that mode itself is called as kernel panic mode. And yeah, so so what is the components or why it is so important, right? So you it would or the kernel is the one it will have all the disk information. So means nothing but your all the partitions. So how many partitions? First thing, how many disks are connected to your machine and how many partitions in each disk. So all this information, right? It will be stored in your kernel. And without these information, your system can't identify it, right? So that's why it depends on kernel a lot, especially in Linux. It depends a lot. And your driver information. So what are all drivers now? So just so I'm just giving a Windows example so that easily you can relate it to. So just right click your this Windows start button and go to device manager, and you will see a lot of hardware devices, all these hardware devices and the equivalent software to that. All right. So it means if you click on audio, these many audio devices are plugged in or the drivers are as of now it's like configured, right? So like that Bluetooth is there, hard disk. So I have three hard disk, sorry, one hard disk, two SSDs I have. So all these three. So if let's say if this driver is not like it is not picking, this disk itself I can't or the system can't detect, right? So it's that critical. So your drivers are like a middleman. So it is the one which will determine or like it will connect your hardware to your software. Like so that's the kind of like a bridge you can call it as. So yeah, so for every components it would be there, and this is where like your graphics card and so many things. Okay, so that's what like that information as well as your basic kernel information. So means like basic system configuration. So the CPU, those frequency also you can tweak that. Let's say if it is a virtual machine. So I will explain what is virtual machine and containers in like in later session. But let's say if it is a virtual machine, you can edit that in your kernel settings and a lot of things there. So I'm just listing a basic or very few, right? So many things the kernel is important and it must be updated every now and then for inside a server, right? So or in a production server it must be updated. So that's the thing, right? So that's how important it is, and we will see that how or what is the actual kernel file in later session. So after kernel is booted, your next boot. So before that, let me show you this one. So this is the kernel or this is the process it will be loading, and yeah, so this is your BIOS MBR means master boot record, and it will boot your grub, right? So it executes the grub bootloader, and next is your bootloader, actual bootloader, and it has the splash screen which I shown, right? So Windows or Linux, so you must choose. So if there is only one, it will be chosen automatically. And next one is your kernel, and you can read this. Anyhow, I'll be sending this in the notes. And so the next one is your init, right? So this init also, it's almost you might have seen this, but you might have not used it often. So let's say you are having issue with your Windows, like let's say you like pressed on power button or in your laptop, right? So your Windows was not booted successfully for 3 or 4 times, like intentionally or accidentally, you're rebooting your machine again and again for 3 or 4 times. The fifth time, right, it will throw this error that startup error or startup issue. It will directly boot to the advanced startup settings. Okay, so this is that setting screen, and in that setting screen, you have startup setting. So if you go to that screen, you would end up in this one, right? So, or you might have seen this before. So what is these all, or what are all these like important options these are? And you can even go through this via system configuration. So you just type system in your start and you would end up in this screen. So here also you can select this one. Just go to boot, you have safe boot. So like that, it is the same actually. So why this is important, right? So yeah, there are different stages or different levels. Okay, so each level has its own meaning, and so why? Because so still you like it didn't shown you the lock screen, so still it's in that loading screen, and like in the backend it need to determine which level to be selected. So by default there will be one level, right? So that level it should be determined already, or it will be already determined, and it will boot to that. So what is those? Each level has its own meaning. So let's see what are all those levels, right? So let me open a notepad. So first level is your zero or your shutdown. Here I mentioned as alt, so both are same. So if you type init zero in your shell, it will be shutting down. Okay, so I'll type it as init, and yeah. So init 0. So how about init 1? It's nothing but a single user mode. So we will see what a single user mode in later session, but a single user mode is so only I will be having the access to that screen or that console. So single user mode is nothing but a console access. So means like in this point of view, let's say I open this VMware, so only I will have access to this VM or this machine, right? For all the settings, only I have access because it is not shared with someone, and only I can do that. So that's what called a single user mode. And yeah, so why? Because Linux is a multi-user, so OS especially, and your Windows is not, obviously. So means if you open a multi-user session, it's a multi-user first thing, Windows also, but at the same time you can't use the same user again. Means like as of now, I'm logged in as the user called as Jojo here, right? So if I open a new session, or if I try to open a new session, it will throws or this session will be terminated, and that session it will be alive. So that's the issue with your Windows. Okay, so means it is not a typical multi-user fashion, and whereas in Linux, I can open the same Jojo user on the same machine like n number of times, like 1,000 sessions also I can open. There won't be any issues. Okay, so we will see which file determines that and how it works in later session. But yeah, that's the meaning of multi-user. And there is a catch here. So in init2, multi-user without network. So NFS is nothing but network file system, or without network, both are same only. So uh, this is a multi-user mode with network. That's your init3. So mostly you would be seeing this init3 as a default run level, okay, or init level, and init 4 is not being used. So directly you can go to file, and it's called as X11 or GUI mode. So if you have init 5 as your default run level, you would see, so there is a GUI mode in your Linux also, especially in Red Hat also it is there. So so in order to boot your GUI or boot to GUI, the run level should be init 5. And lastly, your init 6 is nothing but if you type init 6 in your machine, it will reboot the server. Okay. So with that, it's yeah. So these many run levels are there. So by default, or the most used run levels are your init 3 and init 5. Sorry. Yeah. Init 3, init 5. And for reboot, mostly we will use init 6. Okay. So that is the default one. And how I can relate it to your Windows is, so you have these two options, right? So fourth one is nothing but init 2. So enable safe mode, but without network, it will be. It won't have the network driver itself won't be loaded actually. So that's the thing. And if you select the spy, it will be like the safe mode with network. Okay, so that's here init 3 in your Linux. Okay, so like that, you can relate few options which is here and here, and yeah. So even in your Windows also, if you don't want GUI and it should be like a only command prompt, you can come here and select this no GUI boot. You select this and apply and reboot your machine. The GUI itself you won't see until you revert this change back. Okay, so yeah, so that is your init level, and the same thing only it will be passed to the next step, which is called as run level. So it is one more catch in run level is, so if you want to boot some more applications along with your along with your machine, right? So in your Windows, it is called a startup service, right? So one second. Yeah, so this one. So if you see this run level in your Windows, you just go to your task manager and you would see the startup services, or you have this startup apps. So this will start along with your operating system, right? So that's what, like, all these applications should be started. I enabled these all, right? So like that, you have multiple softwares you will use in your work environment, and those should also be booted along with your server if you want, right? So that is what your run level is determined, and you have multiple run levels based on the one which you select before. Based on that init level, this it is equivalent to that run level. So if you so mostly these like in run level 0, nothing will be there because while shutting down you won't boot anything, right? So mostly this run level 3 or run level 5 is being used, right? So only these two are, you have one more run level called as etc init.d. Okay, so inside that directory, if some applications are started or if some applications configuration files are placed, so those applications will start along with your OS. Okay, so in your Linux especially, so that's the run level. So mostly you will end up or you will use this run level for etc rc dot d dot sorry rc3 dot d. Okay, so dot d is nothing but a directory. So we'll see those things. Guys, okay. Sure, just- okay, so it's not called. Let me type it out. Rc dot d rc dot d, or you will use pi, or you can use etc init dot d. Okay, so these are all the run level. So once this run level is also booted, then only you will see the lock screen. So it is like a 8-step process, and yeah, you would see the actual lock screen or startup animation in your Windows or anything, right? So lock screen. So that's how, or that's the process. So I can even explain it's like around 4 hours also you can. So because I didn't even went too much detail, especially in hard disk or in your BIOS or in your motherboard itself, we can see lot of options would be there. So that's what it is, a huge topic. And so as of now, this knowledge is more than enough for you to at least understand what's happening in the background, right? So these many steps are happening, and it's important. As a sysadmin, you must know all these, right? So any doubts, anyone, please let me know in the chat. Sanjeev, Francis, or I guess Francis joined multiple times, right? So you're having any issue, Francis? Like you joined, you opened 3 sessions. I'm not sure why. So yeah, that's your booting procedure. So moving on. So is anyone? Just a sec. Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Please confirm in the chat. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the confirmation. And yeah. So did anyone had any issue while installing, or did anyone try to install the VMware? If so, please confirm in the chat. So just type bit.ly slash Linux LL. So you would end up in this screen. Again, give the link. Okay, Sanjay, thanks for confirmation. So you just open ISO or the VMware and you have these two files. Okay. Okay, you did downloaded everything. Okay. So these two are the important files, and so this ISO is nothing but your operating system, and this one is your VMware workstation. So what is VMware? We will see the virtualization. So again, that is a theory part, but yeah, that's an important one actually. So we will see that, and just to conclude today's session, I will show you how to install in VMware. as well as if time permits, you will see in AWS as well. Okay, so AWS as well as GCP. So with that, in today's session, we will conclude that. So, but before that, I will explain you what is virtualization. Because, so first thing, prior to virtualization or this that concept, what was people using, right? In during 1990s or something. So like during Solaris or like very old days, right? So what they used to use, right? So they used to install it in the bare metal server, means the actual server. And if some, let's say if there is only one operating system, that's it. There won't be multiple operating system, or you don't even have an option to boot to multiple operating system. So you should have different hard disks for each operating system, right? So each should be a bootable one, especially as well as if you are not using that, and there is even a limitation for yeah, like your hardware also. Since like those days, it's even costlier, right? So all the silicon based devices, it used to cost a lot. So there is a limitation for your hardware a lot. So after that, only there is a revolution called as virtualization. Means virtually you can use multiple operating system under a same machine or same operating system. Means in my Windows machine, I can boot to a Linux machine, right? So because by nature it should not be compatible, right? So means it is not coded in a way that it should not be compatible, but this VMware stands as a layer in between, which should make it compatible for the server, or it can be used. And what it changed, or what is the main advantage of using the virtualization? And it's a old one as of now, because why I drew another box is you have another concept called as containerization. This is virtualization, and next one is your containers or containerization. Right? So what is the difference, or why we need these two, and what revolutionized? So this is the latest one compared to your virtualization. So what is the difference? And we will see that, especially because if you understand this only, you can understand how VMware works, because we won't delve too deep into VMware, especially, right? So let me just give the basic idea how it works. First thing, you have base OS. So what is base OS here? In my case, it's nothing but Windows 11, right? So the same thing goes for my container as well, Windows 11. And let me finish the VMware diagram. Okay. So in VMware, you have on top of your machine, I install VMware workstation, right? So VMware workstation. So any version, it doesn't matter. And on top of that VMware workstation only, I install any operating system of my wish. It's RHEL or um, means RHEL OS or Ubuntu, or even Mac you can install. So Mac OS or anything. It's your choice, but virtually you are installing it. So here this VMware workstation, right? It enables virtualization. So what does virtualization mean? So I'm repeating that term a lot, but what is the actual meaning is virtually you're going to use the resources. So yesterday we saw what are all the resources, right? So your CPU, memory, and GPU, as well as you can even have your disk, right? So all this you can create virtually as well as network, right? So all these different resources will be virtually used in this layer, or VMware workstation is solely responsible to convert from your base machine. Again, that's an important thing. So it won't magically use some, like let's say if you have CPU of 8 cores. So in my case itself, let me give an example. So I have a CPU of 8 cores. So means I have 8 core in our my CPU is 8 core, right? So I can't overboard and I can't simply give 10 cores to be virtually used. That's not ideal, right? So because it should run on top of that, or it is running on top of our base OS only, right? So if that itself is going overboard, it won't work, right? So it will throw error. So that's the thing. So your base OS should run at least in the bare minimum. So at least one core should be allocated to your base server. So that's the reason the system requirement for your VMware, right? So I might have given two CPU cores because one core should be used by your base machine and one should be used in your VM or VM instance on core CPU. And how about memory? So memory is a controversial topic. Why? Because it depends on how much you are trying to use in that instance. Because since it is a temporary memory, means temporary storage, right? So your memory would be so let's say you need only 4 gigs and you are having only 4 gigs. Sorry, you are going to virtualize it. So means you can use only 1 gig or those kind of like limitations are still there, but it's in our local machines or consumer grade machines. Whereas in your data centers or you can pay a lot for your your RAM or any hardware. So obviously you can have a very good setup in especially in your virtualization itself you can have a very good setup. Okay, so that's the thing. All these components will be virtually used in your machine. So what are the advantages? So there won't be any wastage, right? Means there won't be a so this server, let's say this server is running 1D. So let me complete this one. So this is my OS layer, right? So on top of my OS only, I will install, let's say, HTTP server or any very small in size application. It can be HTTP or anything. So let's say it is like a monitoring tool, right? So monitoring tool, something. But in order to run that, I need to run all these, right? So and so there is a wastage of or so just to run this small thing, so let's say it is consuming 200 MB of your RAM, right? So remaining 4 gigs, or let's say you allocated 1 gig, it's of wastage, right? So simply again you can if you are using the same machine, fine. If you want, you can use the another remaining machines or remaining resource for some other machine. So virtually you're going to do that. So that's the advantage or kind of revolutionize that because prior to that you are having a limitation to use only a specific set of hardware only for a small amount of resources and remaining would be simply running, right? So this would be an efficient method. And what about containers? So this is a as of now still we are using virtualization and container is it is a very good thing. Okay, so in sorry, Docker. Okay, so Docker is a Docker for Windows. Okay, so this software or this is a company which pioneered the container concept. So container concept it's been there for some time, but Docker is the one which commercialized it and it's been open and for everyone to use. Okay, so what is Docker? So Docker is like again containers, and what is the use of a container? So instead of you are having let me go basic, easy to understand this one. So your OS is as of now we have an OS of 9.43 gigs. So I need to install all these, and it should have a file system, literally a fully functional operating system. Then only on top of that I need to install this small software. Still there is a wastage of resources, right? So in order to avoid wastage of resources in our base machine, we install the VM. Still there is a it is not efficiently utilized, right? So in order to avoid that issue, you have containers. So and one more major issue is, let's say all this you will be sending it to a colleague. Let's say HTTP a specific version you are you need to use in your project, and your colleague is a newly joined person, and he should be using the exact version, then only it should be compatible, right? So in order to for him to use, he should follow all these steps. He should install the exact version of workstation as well as exact version of the OS, and he should pull the, let's say if it is not the latest version or older version of HTTP, there would be version compatibility issues, right? So those kind of issues can be easily neglected in your containers, because here the concept itself is a very unique, because in order to, so before that image concept, you have this Docker engine. So let me, so Docker engine is nothing but the same thing like your VMware, but it works a different way. So Docker engine is the one which is responsible to convert your whatever images you're giving to the machine language, and vice versa. And it has the machine languages of multiple OS, means it can detect a RHEL machine or RHEL container or even Mac OS container or even a simple even HTTP container also it can detect. So this Docker engine is the sole responsible or the most powerful one, especially for containers. Okay, so now on top of that, now what it defines or it differentiate between your container and virtualization. So for virtual, you need to install all these to achieve or install, sorry, to use this HTTP. But in containers, you have a concept called as images. So you have this HTTP image, or you can even create your own image. Okay, so using the same Docker tool only, you can create your own image, and you will, one second, I'm opening the Docker page. So you will have multiple Docker images in the internet, as well as you can create your own, as I told. And what does that allows is, so it will like this layer itself is not used. You see, we are still using the base OS, and the best part is that image won't be it won't be in huge in size. Okay, so we are achieving the same usage of the software, and we can bundle this image to a container. Okay, so this means it will be bundled with the required libraries, or so what does the library mean? So let's say this package needs some dependencies. So that's what you will install. Like once you install in your Windows, you might have installed .NET runtime or .NET framework or something, right? So what does that mean? So it requires .NET to run that application. So, or it is coded in .NET, right? So that's the thing, and it requires that, and that will be already present in your the whole operating system, especially in your virtualization. Whereas here, it will be already available in the container, or in that image itself, it will be bundled, right? So that the required library files as well as the drivers or whatever required, right? So it will be bundled here, and you can send this as a container. So new container or whatever name you want, you can keep it, and you can send this to someone or your colleague. It is nothing like a nothing but a zip, right? So you have you can compress and you can share those movies or files, right? So it is almost the same concept like zip, but including the dependencies like libraries or driver files for that image. So this is the one. So just go to hub.docker.com and click on explore. You have these many official images. So this Ubuntu is an official from the canonical brand, like they are the one who owns Ubuntu, right? So that's what, like you have the official one, so maintained by canonical, like that. And you can even select previous versions as well. So there is a lot of advantage of containers, and still you're achieving the same goal. So you want to run this application, you can simply like fetch that image and create your own container, and you can share it among your colleagues, right? So that's how, or that is the uh, like that is the latest thing. So, and Okay, now you might ask, okay, now containers are the only thing it will be used in your work environment. Obviously, no. So there is a requirement or there is some limitation in containers, and so it is not a full-fledged operating system, right? So only for so obviously it will have a bare minimum operating system. Very it is kind of like a light version of your operating system, right? So that's what, like it was, so that's the reason the size would be around 300 MB or very small in size. Okay, so that's the important thing. And yeah, that's the differentiation between your virtualization and containers. And in your work environment, we will use both containers as well as virtualization. So means we will have a VM. On top of that, we will have containers. Just for like, we can create a container and we can share it. So there won't be a dependency issues, right? Because almost every missions, if it is not a new project, so it will be a ease of like it will be already set up. Just you need to resolve that version issue, right? So just for that, you will use that. Okay, so that's your basic virtualization and container concept. So now we will see this one, how to install. Okay, so go to the same link, bit.ly linux ll. Let me once again send that link. So why again and again I'm sending is, please do bookmark that link, because I received a lot of mails again asking for that link. So like it is like I won't remove this link or it won't be changed. So you can bookmark, and like if you're not joining the session also, you can go through all these files. It won't be modified guys. Okay. And here you just go to this ISO and VMware, and if you want to install, so the installation guide is already here. So VMware workstation installation, it is just a typical installation. Okay. So you just download it and install. And once you install, you will you need to type the key. Obviously, it is not a free one. VMware owns this one, and it is a evaluation version of 90 days. But if you use this keys, it is for the lifetime key. Okay, so please do use this key, and this key works only for workstation 16, workstation Pro 16. And if you are downloading a version 17 is the latest one. If you're downloading version 17, please do reach out to me. Okay, so I will give you a new key for 17 version. Okay, so that this key won't work there. So that's the reason. And you must be at least using a 15 version. So minimum version is, or minimum compatibility version is 15. Okay, so that's also an important thing. And the next one is your the OS installation. So this one we'll be doing now. So before that, just a sec, let me close unwanted browsing. Yeah. So any doubts till now, guys? No. Okay. Yeah. So now we will install the mission. So first thing, once you install the workstation, right, you would end up in this screen. So this is the home screen or the dashboard of your VMware workstation. And before proceeding further, as I told, you must have the virtualization, right, enabled. So how to enable the virtualization, or by default, none of the vendors will encourage virtualization, right? So they will disable it by default. Means, let's say you are using a Lenovo laptop or HP, Dell, any vendor, they will disable the virtualization. To how to identify whether it is enabled or disabled is, just go to your task manager and navigate to performance, select CPU, and you would see this virtualization is enabled or disabled. So in your case, if it is disabled, then you should enable it, right? So how would you enable? So again, it depends on your vendor. So let's say you are using a HP laptop. So the virtualization enable is like you just type virtualization enable in HP. So you just Google that. The very first link, right? It is nothing but you need to go to your laptop BIOS screen. and you need to change that virtualization option. Okay, so by default it will be disabled. You need to enable it. So why I'm asking you to follow the official guide, right? Because each vendor is notorious to give their own BIOS keys. So by default, most of the like default most of the motherboards like the MSI, um, what else? Many vendors are there, right? So all will use F2. Okay, so F2 is like a common one, but if you see here, it is like F10 to open the BIOS. So like that, the laptop vendors, right? So they can, or they are using a different keys to boot to the BIOS screen. So always just if you want to enable, or you must enable the virtualization, no other option. So yeah, so you just Google your if it is HP, it is enable in HP. So how about Dell? So even all the vendors, they must have at least one article for this virtualization enabling. So this is the official guide. It would take you just 2 minutes, guys. Okay, so just enable it, and then only you can use this. And once you enable it and restart, on save that settings, very important, save it. And once it is rebooted, you will come back here and see whether it is enabled. Okay, so then only you can use this VMware. Okay, so that's the thing. And first thing, as you would see this one. So click on create a new virtual machine, and don't select the typical, select the custom. Next, and this is the hardware compatibility. So what is this compatibility, or what is actually this one is your hardware or this VMware workstation layer. Okay, so there are many, or it's been quite some time VMware is being around, and there is multiple versions of it. You see, so and there is a limitations as well. So as of now, the limitation is, so if you're using this hardware version, you are you are limited to use only 128 gigs of memory at a time. Okay, so that's a lot, first thing, but that is the limitation, especially in our VMware Workstation Pro 16 version. So 17, it might be a different one, or actually in your work environment, you will use VMware vSphere. So that is a totally different software. So we will see that at the last session. Okay. So as of now, don't change any version here. So just click on next and click on the second radio button, and we need to install with the disk image or the ISO. Okay. So, and this is the ISO. I already selected it. I just go to browse and select where, or just go to the navigate to the download part and select that ISO which you downloaded from the resource section, right? So from here you did download it, and you just navigate to that. And one good thing about especially RHEL is it is a easy install operating system. So what is easy install, right? So if you see, easy install is, so it will skip the setup for some settings. So by default, it will take some settings, and that's a good thing. So it won't be a long process for you to install or initiate a new operating system. Okay, so the username, you can give anything. So I'll just give user one, and the password, please keep it small, or just keep it 1 2 3 4, just like I did. Okay, so why? Because it is a lab session, and many, trust me, I receive a lot of emails. People do forget the password which they kept. Obviously, I will show you how to reset the password also in later sessions without even logging in. But that's the thing, like anyhow, you are the one using the lab, so please keep a small password. Okay, so and do note that this is the password you will use for the root user as well. So that's the thing. And later also you can change for root user, but for the time being, it is the same password. Okay, so click on next, and you want to where you want to store your VM. Okay, so and the extension for this file is vmx.vmx, just like your in your Windows you have .exe for executables, right? So here it is .vmx. And so one more thing is, so if you have multiple partitions like me, or multiple disks, right? So please prefer other partition than your C drive. Why? Because obviously we won't use a lot, but if you using C drive for everything, it will slow down your, especially your base OS. Okay, so that's the reason. In my case, I have around 4 partitions, so I'll be installing it here, and I'll be creating a new VM. So VM new, and yeah, so, and I'll shorten this name to rel. Click on next, and how many processor I want to allocate. So if you don't have any other partition, so that is for the people who have multiple partitions. So if you have only one partition, obviously no other choice. So you need to install in C partition only. So yeah. So this is for how many processors or how many cores you want to virtually use, right? So how many you are going to allocate for the this particular VM. Again, this settings all will be applicable only for this VM. And if you're simultaneously running multiple VMs, so let's say if I'm starting all these three, each will consume separate processor. So I have around 8. So let's say one is being used in for my base OS, so remaining I have 7. So in that 7, all these three will be running, and that's what. So that's the virtualization. Okay. So by default, at least one you must give. So just give one. And this depends on your RAM or your memory capacity. So in my case, I have 8 gigs, right? So by default, it will select 2. So which is fine. If I select one also is fine. So because it's not a memory hungry operating system and we won't use much. So just for understanding, we'll run some applications or run something, but it is like let's say if you're installing Chrome or something, it is a memory intensive applications, right? So we won't do those things. So just if you are limited, if you're having only 4 gigs, it will be by default selecting one. So just use the recommended memory, which it will be selected by default. Click on next, and this network connection, right? So you can either use bridged or NAT. It's your choice. I personally usually select NAT, which is nothing but network address translation, or your default host IP. It will be pulling from the IP pool. Okay, so you will see this how it is pulling later session, and yeah, the next one you can give this recommended. That is for your IO controller and this virtual disk type. Okay, so please don't select this IDE. So you can select either SATA, SCSI, or NVMe. Okay, so but even though NVMe SSD is the fastest, or this architecture is the fastest one, still you it depends on your hard disk, right? So let's say you are having a very old hard disk. It is even though it is a VM, it must run on this hard disk only, right? So it doesn't matter, guys. Okay, so you can select anything, and let me keep the recommended one since I am installing in the NVMe SSD only. So in my case, it's fine. In your case, it's your choice. Okay, so yeah, and please don't select exclude IDE, so it's obsolete. Okay, so no one uses IDE, and select the create a new virtual disk, obviously since it is a new machine. So here you have two options. So this two options is like as of now you don't see a difference because but there is a major difference. So each option is a different one. So it is called as thin provisioning, thick provisioning. Okay, so let me quickly explain that. And you would see that in your VMware vSphere. Okay, so what is thick provisioning and thin? So the basic difference is so thick provisioning, right? So you have 20 gigs, which we selected in the previous or this window only, you've given 20. So if you're giving this option, right? So you see, store virtual disk as a single file means it is nothing but thick provisioning or this 20 gigs, right? So it will be right away allocated in that hard disk. So in your base or hard disk, right? So from this disk, from this 224 gigs, it will be used in the 20 gigs, or right away it will create that virtual disk. Whereas if it is a thin provisioning, even though it is 20 gigs, until you use that, or until you are elapsing the current usage. So as of it's gradually increasing actually. So by default, it will allocate 64 MB or some MBs, right? So MB, or if you're not using anything, it will be storing even in KB. Okay. So gradually it will increase based on your usage, and it will be capping to 20 gigs. Again, you can increase this disk, depends on your usage, but the point here is first itself, if you want to use or create the whole disk, or you want it to increase gradually. And the performance won't be that different, but thin provisioning will be bit slow compared to your thick provisioning. Okay, so that's the main difference. So I will be giving this thin provisioning only. So yeah, and you should select this VMDK file. So VMDK file, I will select in F, VM, same VM directory. So just keep it handy so that if you want to remove the disk also, you should easily identify it. Okay, so just save it in the same directory like um, your VM. Okay, so and this is the full form. VMDK is VMware Virtual Disk. Enter. So I'm just giving number one, and that's it. So once you're giving finish, it will power on the machine. And this is the section where if you didn't turn on your virtualization, right, it will throw error. Because virtually, it can't detect all your resources. So that's the this thing. So if it detected, it will move on to the next stage. Right. So that's the thing. And let it load. Okay, let me show you that screen which so it's just a easy install, right? So there it will show you one screen, installation screen. So that one it will be automatically skipped. Okay, so yeah, now it will skip it. Yeah, so this is the installation one, and it depends on your hard disk. Yeah, this is the screen, guys. Installation summary, right? So you see, it is automatically populating all these details. See, but if you are doing separately, or if you didn't selected that easy install option, in our case, it is by default selected. So you can deselect, or you can avoid that as well. But it is easy, right? So you need to set up all that partitioning also you can do while installing itself, but it's fine, right? So, and it will download around 1,800 packages or something. So if you see this loading screen, so please don't shut down your base machine. Or if it is going to not responding, the screen also, you just minimize and keep it aside, because it might go to not responding in some cases. So don't force close, because again you need to repeat all these steps again, the installation part, since it is forcefully closed by us, right? So that's the thing. So while it is installing, let me show you how to do the AWS, or how to initiate in the any cloud service provider. So again, it is not restriction that okay, you should use only AWS, GCP, or Azure. So you can use OCI or even Alibaba Cloud, any cloud. It's your choice until it is free. Right? Okay. Why? Because it should not pay for, especially for lab sessions, right? So it should be free, and almost it is free. Okay. So that's the thing. And first thing, let's go to aws.amazon.com. So this is the link, by the way. And yeah. So And once you are in this link, and click on sign in, and it will ask you for creating that account. Okay. If you already have an Amazon account, please do log in that. It should work. If you're not, you can use any other account. Okay, so this is the screen you will see. So if you're not having any account, or you already had an account, so please create a new account. Why? Because AWS is kind enough to give us 1 year of free tier. So free tier is like for 1 year, and you can use all the important services, especially. So why they are giving is for you to transition to cloud. So if you have a hands-on, or if you understood how it works, then only you will transition, or you will start running your application in AWS, right? So that's the reason they giving this 1 year of free tier. And it's not a lot, I would say, but still they are at least giving that. And in GCP, it's also free. So we'll see that later while we see the GCP. So let me log into my profile and share my screen. Yeah. So, and for the first time, if you're logging in, it will ask you for the billing. So billing, you should give your credit card or debit card. It's your choice, or especially so if you are in India, it will even accept a RuPay card as well. Okay. And Visa or any like Mastercard, any payment gateway also, or this kind of gateways it do accept. Okay, so that's the first thing. And yeah, so once you are done with the billing management or billing account, you will end up in this screen. So this is the home screen or the console screen for your AWS. And you have by default, or I have by default, North Virginia. So this is the default, or like AWS do prefer this location a lot. And like just for latency, I won't change my location, because some of the services it won't be available in some locations. So there won't be latency, to be frank. Okay, so and for our lab session, right? So you need not worry about latencies, right? So it's just our lab, and there can be latency. So that's the thing. And just search for EC2. So what is EC2 is? Elastic Cloud Compute. So that's, yeah, EC2, or nothing but your VM. So okay, so they have their own naming schemes, and just select this EC2, and you can use this global search for almost searching every services. And yeah, so don't be overwhelmed about these many services. Obviously, they have around 2,300 services like that. So yeah, it's a lot actually. So, but we will use only the few which we can, especially in free tier. So there is around 25 important services are free. Okay, so just click on launch instance, and please don't toggle this to the old view. So new is, or sorry, this new EC2 console view is very nice, and you can just launch this. Click on this orange button. Okay, so now you end up in this screen. So just type whatever you want. So just to name this one, I'll just type lab server. And this is the important thing. So here it is called as EMI, or nothing but your ISO. So you need to select this ISOs, and it is a licensed one, first thing. So it means like AWS will license on your behalf. So that's what they will charge you. But one good thing is it is free tier eligible for almost every. So you see, every ISO you see here are free tier eligible except macOS, right? So that's the thing. And obviously we need only Red Hat, and you even have Amazon Linux, which is nothing but it is a bare bone Linux. So we will see that in later session why it is bad. It is nothing but a container, to be frank. Okay, so not a full-fledged OS, but it will do almost every important thing. Okay, So that's what, and you have Rail 9 also, and Rail 9 itself is a free tier eligible. So please select that. And one good thing is it does support SSD, right? So SSD is nothing but solid state drive, and that's faster than your hard disk, and that's a free tier eligible as well. So that's a win-win situation for us. And don't change this architecture. And here you have only one option for free tier, that's T2 micro, right? So you have one vCPU and 1 gig of memory. So which is enough since it is not a GUI. We won't use GUI. And next thing or next important thing is you have keypad, or this is the mode of authentication. So you have two ways of authenticating, almost not only in Linux, in your Windows also, password based and passwordless. So passwordless means nothing but your key based authentication. So that's what this is. So you can, or you must create a key at least for the first time. And yeah, so I let you can name it anything. So I'll just name it 1, 2, 3, 4. And the key pair type and all those differences we will see in later session. We will have a dedicated session especially for key based authentication. So as of now, I'll select this PuTTY private key .ppk, and just create key pair. It will download that. Okay, so and please don't delete this file, guys, because again you need to create this instance. So there is a way to still create a new one and push it to the server, but still please don't delete this one. Okay, and yeah, so network settings, so don't change anything here. And moving on, you have how much storage you want. So AWS is giving 30 gigs of free storage, and you so 10 gigs is more than enough. So just give 10, and yeah, that's it. So you can even create a different file system while you create your VM itself. Just click on edit, but we don't need that. Later we will create anyhow, right? So this is a summary, and this information you must see. No other choice since it is a free tier, right? So you must see this kind of information or pop-up one. Since if you don't see this, please log out and create a new ID, because this is the one which will determine that whether it is a free tier eligible or not. Okay, so just click on launch, and that's it. So let me quickly see how much. Okay, it's at the last stage. So if it is kernel core, so that would take some at least 4 or 5 minutes ETA, and that would be done. So perfect. So you need not worry about virtualization or anything if you're doing in AWS, because it's already virtualization enabled, or simply you're using a server which is in some random location in this uh, place, North Virginia, right? So that's what. So that's it. It's already running. And check this box, and you see this public IP, right? So just copy this, and you need to have the remote connection software. So you have, I even included that in our resources. So go to resources and ISO and VMware. You will see this Kitty. So Kitty is nothing but a fork of PuTTY. And yeah, so you have multiple versions of, or multiple softwares like Kitty or PuTTY. But yeah, so it's easy, and I use this in my work environment as well. That's the reason I prefer this one. And there is some advantage of using Kitty over PuTTY, right? So yeah. So first thing, once you download it and open it, this is the first, or this is the actual screen. And don't right away paste the IP and open, right? So you should not do that, because you need to save the profile. So just type something over here. So you can type anything. So test lab or anything. And so still don't click on open. Okay. So we need to save this profile. But before that, we need to create a customized profile for us, right? So I usually remove this bell sound, and come to window. So this lines of scroll, right? So give it a huge number. And font, if you want to change it, you can change how much size you want. It's your choice, and color also it's your choice. So you can change it to this one foreground and connection. So how much? So this is a good feature. Like how much seconds it need to be alive. So means that it is a remote session, right? So let's say if it is the session you are not using that, so every 60 second if you're not, it is idle, right? That kitty session is, it will send a null packet to that session, right? So I'll just give 16 and I will enable this TCP keep alive and come to data. So data, you just give the username, and by default in AWS, the username is EC2-user. Okay. And moving on, you need to select the private key which we downloaded just now. So where do you like redirect that is? So just expand this SSH key, guys. Oh, sorry, this SSH section. And in this section, don't expand auth, click on auth and just click on browse, and you have this 1234 is the one which we downloaded, right? .ppk. So just select that, and now you just scroll back to session and click on save. So now this is a profile, means you can pin it, or you can create a pin, and that's it. It will open and you will see this alert. Okay, so this, you need not panic on this alert. If you see this alert, it's good thing that your system can communicate to the uh, instance or EC2 instance. So click on accept, and it will try to log in with your key. Okay, so this is the user and it will try to log in with the public key. So if it is a legit one, obviously it will log in, right? So that's what you are seeing here. So now just within 5 minutes, not even 5 minutes, right? So we did log into the AWS instance. So let's see what is the status in. Okay, so installation is done in our VM. So once installation is done, I guess it is again rebooting, is it? Oh, so you ended up in this lock screen, right? So just click on this not listed and type root. So root is nothing but an admin account for your Linux. And as I told, the password you enter during the installation step setup, right? That is the actual password you should use for root user as well, right? So yeah, come to terminal, close all these pop-ups. So there is no, so don't think that, okay, system not registered, it will pop up. So we will register in later session. So this screen you should be you opening, and just type if config -a, and so just type run level. So this is what I told. So it is N5, which is nothing but init5, right? So init5 is X11 or GUI. So we are using a GUI version of the Linux machine, right? So that's what. And this if config command, I will even send it in the notes as well. So this will be the one giving you the NIC information or network interface card information. Okay, so yeah. So if this IP is not populated, please do restart your machine. Still it is not populated, you need to remove the network card and again add it. So those kind of issues you might face. If not, please do reboot your whole machine itself, like not this VM, the whole machine, and again try. If you're still facing issue, do reach out to me, and mostly it should populate, right? So yeah. So this is the actual system's IP, or this same server we will access via Kitty. Okay. So why? Because GUI mostly in your company or anywhere, it won't be not used, and you can't even, there is not much advantage of using GUI, especially in enterprise, right? So I will just copy paste and again do the same thing here. So just go to session and type test VM lab or something. Any name you can type. Again, I'll disable the bill. All these things I'll just change it. Right. So if you don't change this color value, it will be white. Okay. Your text will be white and background will be in black. So I'll just do this 60 and enable. But since it is not a key-based authentication, I will just give root and auto login password. It is 1234. Okay. You come back to session and save this. Double click. And here also you must see this alert. So this one we will see while we see the key-based authentication. So this is nothing but a metadata of that key. Okay, it's not the actual key. So yeah, we will see that. So we logged into the same server remotely. Okay, so yeah, and many do have some like doubts, like whether it is the actual same mission or not. So I will just go to the file explorer in this one, and I am already in the home path of root user. So all these paths and all, don't worry as of now. I will explain those things. So yeah, so I will just create a empty file. So touch Linux 204 batch or something. So you see right away it created here. So means it is the same server we are accessing remotely. Okay, so means it is a CLI version of the same server, right? So that's the main motto of, and mainly you will use this. No other choice, especially in your work environment. So that's the thing. And EC2, sometimes it might time out. So if it is timing out, just right click in this tab and click on duplicate session. And it will open a new session once again. And that's it. Or you can click on close plus restart. It will restart a new session. It will open a new window and it will automatically log in since you saved as a profile. Right. So again, once you're done with your lab, please stop your instance, not terminate. So if you terminate, again, you need to create from first. So do stop it. Okay. So your cost won't be incurring just for stopping it. Right. So if you keep on running, it will incur cost and that's not good. Right. So you need to pay for your lab at least. So once you're in your mission, just type date. It will give the current date on that server it is configured. And you just type this one, etc Red Hat release. So this is just to see what is the version which has been used in that AWS instance. It is 9.2, which is the latest one. So how about our base mission? So this local host is our mission, right? The same commands you can type here as well. And cat / etc Red Hat release. Here we are using 8.4, which is the same we installed, right? So yeah, that's your AWS and like VMware. So GCP we will see in next session, guys. Okay, so it is the same, just the naming will be different. Not only in GCP, almost every cloud service provider, right? The process or the concept would be the same, just the naming. So here it is EC2, right? So there it is called as computer instance or compute instance. Okay, so and you only use VM instance only. It is, and you have like even RHEL 8 is also there in GCP. So that's the thing. And Azure also is good, but Azure is not giving for free, unfortunately. So if you are a student, you can use Azure for free. That too only for $100. Okay, so yeah. And so this is how you shut down or terminate your mission. So if you are done with the session or lab, you just please do stop, don't terminate. Okay, so that's the thing. Since I exposed my IP, I just terminated my mission. So yeah. So any doubts guys. So why? Because you must have a working lab. So then only we can proceed further with the section. Okay. So if there is no doubts, yeah, we can wind up today's session. And for the people who didn't paid for the session, or if you're liking my way of training, so please do enroll for the batch. And yeah, so this is the one. So click on buy now, and yeah, let me share the link as well in the chat. So every weekend it will be going on. So I might even extend based on the, like, if you're having any doubts, I will extend for, like, it won't be just 20 hours. It the maximum I took around 26 hours or so. So yeah, and it's like my 13th batch. This would be, so yeah, with logic labs. So, yeah, so please do enroll, and to the next session it will be only for the paid candidates. So yeah, and today's recording also would be available in the YouTube channel. I'll just give the YouTube channel link. So even I'm having hard time identifying it. So just a sec. Let me try to identify the volume. Yeah, so this is for my previous recordings, right? So like that, you can see, right? So it is already uploaded the yesterday session in our YouTube channel. So yeah, so today's session also it will be uploaded. So please go through, and previous batches also it's there. So yeah, if you're still finding it useful, so please do enroll for the session. And yeah, so if you want to pursue DevOps or any other career path like SRE, DevOps, or platform engineer, or just a sysadmin, you this would be a foundational knowledge, especially, right? So yeah, so yeah, that's it, guys, for the day. So if there is no doubts, thanks for your time. Have a great weekend. Thanks all. Bye bye.